Welcome, Sexy Wookiees, to another episode of the Sexy Wookiee Squadcast. We're continuing reading Star Wars Republic Commando, Hard Contact by Karen Travis. This week's missions are chapters 6 through 10, situations when soldiers actually engage each other. It's your boy, Sexy Leader.
Hey, your girl, Sexy One.
Hey, it's your simp, Sexy too.
Extra simpy this week.
I just want to give the biggest shout out to Megan for making those amazing memes. They made my life.
It had to be done.
Yeah, I didn't know that I could simp this hard, but I am simping. I am simping so much.
I knew this would be a dangerous book.
I think Tumblr is like, what is wrong with you? And I'm just like, I just love it. It has clones and Mandalorians, my two favorite things ever. Don't get me wrong, I really like Jedi, but these two, I'm just...
Oh, yeah. If you love clones, this is the book for you.
Yeah, it is. Read it, everyone. Read along with us because it's amazing.
Yeah, and it goes fast, too. I find the chapters just kind of easy to read and hard to stop.
Yeah.
So even though we've got it in sections, I'm like, no, I want to keep going.
And the chapters are kind of long, but they flow so well that it doesn't feel like you're reading a lot at once.
I like it. We'll see what the non-reader in our little club has to say.
Yeah, no, I look at it differently. I'm struggling with the bouncing around kind of things. And now that we see more of the characters do colliding, like I said, once it gets to the middle of the book, towards the end of the book, I am now able to kind of be like, I kind of rolled my eyes in a good way, if you can say it that way. Like I rolled my eyes and like, thank goodness we are finally seeing that they're all meeting up.
Things are falling into place. The plan is underway.
Finally, yeah. That's when I actually woke up.
Okay. Yeah, it does. You got to do a little setup, get everything established and get everyone to know these characters. And then things collide and action happens. So here we go. We are halfway through this book now, a little over halfway, it looks like. And things are happening. So
things are happening, and something I started doing, I don't know why I didn't start doing this sooner, probably because I'm an idiot, but usually I just like write down my favorite parts of books, but instead I was like, stickies exist, and I started look, we're only halfway through, look at all these stickies.
Yeah, I actually like that idea, and I was thinking about it this week while I was reading. I was like, I should go grab some sticky notes so I can do the Jasmine method and just remember this little spot because this is good stuff. There were a few parts I laughed out loud this week. I was like,
oh my god, I started dying for some of them. I was like, I love the banter. These idiots are my favorite. No, what are they called? These decoys are my favorite.
I'm like, yay, more screen time or page time, I guess. I love him so much.
Oh my god, he's something else.
Such a dork. I love him.
Oh god. Oh, these guys. But
let's get into specifics. What you got for us, Jasmine?
So I want to know, what's your impression of Dr. Uthan? Although, can we just take a quick moment to appreciate how he's like, ma'am, mistress? She's like, you can call me doctor. And I'm like, yes. She did not spend all that time in medical school or whatever to be called mistress or
deadly virus school.
She's like, oh, I'm a doctor. And I'm like, yes. So that already, I love her. But I want to know what you guys think of her.
Yeah, I do like the realisticness of that character, that she's just kind of like, I'm freaking just doing my job, and like I just need the help. I don't care about the Nemoidians and what they need. Like she recognizes in Hokan the qualities of something that she can use, and she's kind of like evil in the way that what she's doing is bad, and she just kind of doesn't care. But then I don't know, it's like I want to compare her to like Isan or other villainesses that we've read, and she just seems kind of like a little bit more human. Like she's not just like mustache twirling evil. She's just doing her job, and she's running around in her nightgown, and she's just like, I'm just a doctor. And I don't know, I'm like kind of relatable. Like that's what I like about this book, is I could find little things to relate to in a lot of these characters. And so the way that she talks to other people and wants to do her job and everything and gets annoyed at what's going on, I'm like, yeah, I believe this. I believe this is how it would happen. So yeah, I don't know. She's not evil and devious, but she's smart, and that could be just as scary.
I apologize if you do hear the helicopters flying around. There's
We won't tell the
helicopters
police where you are, don't worry.
flying around. I
Snitches
don't
get
know why.
stitches.
It's
And end up in ditches.
it's the evening. But anywho, the doctor to me seems like yeah, you're right. Very smart, very uh the quirkiness of the attitude towards Okan is very hey, I'm here to only do what my science tells me to do. I'm not here for your uh, militia type of thing or your militia agenda. She makes that very clear, but she also seems like she's the one who thinks that she's the uh, this doctor thinks that they are the kryptonite or the weakness to level Hokan. And I think really, I think he appreciates it in a way where it's like you're super bad guy. If the super bad guy in the book or in whatever thing you're watching or whatever can appreciate this person, then
Yeah.
this person clearly earned that respect. And I think she earned the respect of Hokan. And she's just like, here, don't get in my way. I'm here to do my job. My science comes first, kind of thing. And let me just do my thing. Thank you. Bye. Right.
Yeah. They make an interesting pair. I like that. What about you, Jess?
She's interesting, like you said, she's more human, and I don't know if this is the right word, but for me she feels more realistic of a bad guy. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Iceheart and I love me some crazy villains, but she just seems so realistic that she's like, yeah, this is my job, and like she knows how to hold herself. Hogan described her as professional with a little bit of like a politician's touch or whatever. I was like, I like that combo. And like you mentioned, she ran out in her nightgown. She's just like,
what are you doing? Shut up.
She's like, you idiots, what are you doing? I was
Middle of the
sleeping.
night.
I just wanted to sleep.
She's like, this can wait till another few hours. Jeez. I'm like, this girl.
She's funny. I like her. But I do like that she is more like relatable compared to other bad guys. Not relatable like we would do what she's doing, but like her reactions and like I guess kind of how she handles things. So I'm starting to like her, and I hope that we could see more of her because she seems really interesting.
I like the word you used, realistic, and that's one of the really unique and appealing things about these books, about this author, is that it is Star Wars. It is sci-fi / fantasy, whatever genre, depending on who's presenting it. And we're used to reading a little bit over the top, larger than life personalities in most of these books, or like crazy action. And Karen Travis's is so grounded. It is so realistic. Like the characters, maybe at the risk of being boring even, are just so relatable and human.
Yeah.
And even the action, it's like, no, that's exactly how that would work. Or the physics make total sense to me. Where was I going with this? Oh, because there was something about the bad guys in these last few chapters that I was like, this is so realistic, in that you've got Hokan and his crew trying to figure out what's going on. Like, somebody landed on this planet. Who is it? Is it Jedi? Is it a whole elite set of soldiers or something? How many are there, and what are their equipment and weapons and everything? So they're looking for all these clues, and they're following all these tracks, and they keep making assumptions based on what they find. And the assumptions are so logical. It's exactly what they would think when they found these things. It's not correct. They're like, okay, there's got to be 10 of them, and they're taunting us by leaving these signs that they're here and they think they're in control. And it's like, that's not really what's happening at all. But from their point of view, looking for clues, that's exactly what you would assume.
Mhm.
And I like that, because I feel like a lot of times we'll read things where somebody will come across a clue and then they'll immediately deduce the exact correct thing that's been going on the other side of the galaxy or in this other person's mind, and they're like, oh, well, clearly this is because, and it happened a lot in the X-Wing series or the Ahsoka novel. They would find one thing and they would immediately know the whole story. And I'm like, well, how did you tell all that from that? Or there's a lot of explanations you could have jumped to from this clue, and you happened to immediately hone in on the right one. Whereas in this, I'm like, oh yeah, they're making all these assumptions that are not correct, but completely believably logical. And I like how that plays out, because I'm like, oh yeah, everybody's confused, and once they finally all come together, it's going to be chaos. It's amazing.
You make a really good point. Like, I do love how, I don't know, down to earth, no, that wouldn't be right, but like, just keep using the word realistic. Like, you know, they were like, I've been awake for these many hours, I'm starting to get tired. One of them was like, my butt cheek is going numb. Just the one, not both. He's just like, oh, that one's going numb. I was like, oh my
and
God,
you're sitting there going, I know that feel.
You know that feeling. It's not the whole butt. It's just the one cheek that's going numb. And he's like, oh, I gotta use the bathroom, but you know, I can wait. And I was like, that's why when E.K. Johnson wrote about like periods in Star Wars, I was like, finally, what happened with all that? So that's why, like, reading this, I was like, it's not like gross in the way the boys would talk about it, but like they're actually talking about human nature. And I was like, I love this so much, because it does show like how more humanistic, not just the clones, but like Star Wars in general is. Like, you know, like everyday stuff happens. And when Darman was like, he was like, oh yeah, we eat these special cubes so we don't have to go to the bathroom as much, blah blah blah. And I was like, wow, I never would have thought about that, like, without this. And I was like, that makes sense. And I don't know, I like how more
but that
everything is.
And it serves the purpose of making it easier as the reader to relate to the characters, because you're reading and you're like, well, it makes total sense that they would be issued these rations that are the exact right amount of nutrients and protein, but produces the least amount of waste. Like, that's the smart thing to do. And then, but then Darman gets a chance to eat real food, and it's like this big experience. And us who have favorite foods and get different meals at every meal, you're going, oh wow, like, can you imagine only eating like tasteless rations forever, and just smart nutrient meals, but not ridiculous foods, and that one time you got to try a cake and it's the best memory you have. Like, we can relate to that because we know different foods, we know what it's like to try something new, and it's so detailed, like the little detail of what they're eating. Like, how often do we sit down and talk about why they're eating what they're eating? But it makes it so relatable and human, I guess. I don't know, I love that kind of detail, and it's so logical. It's not, I threw in this detail so that I could set up this scene that I want to happen for an emotional resonance. It's like, oh no, this is exactly what these soldiers would do, or how they were trained, or the equipment that they would have been given. Like, it makes total sense. It's I believe it. And yet it also, it makes it easier to relate to them.
I like that example about Darman and food, because in, I think it was chapter 6, where he was like, if I were from a different world, meaning like if he weren't a clone, he's like, what food would I eat? What would I try? And then he got to try all this, and I was like, my sweet boy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was such a treat. All these latest chapters of kind of seeing the world still through Darman's eyes, of he gets to meet a family of people that are related, and he can tell by their features that they have some things in common, but each of them is so unique, and they've all these different ages represented in one household. And like, something so simple is fascinating to him because he just doesn't have that life experience. I don't know, you start to think about it, like, what else would he not know? Or think he knew because they taught him the most basicness in simulations, but in the real world, it doesn't always play out like that. I don't know, it's just a fascinating perspective. Or the fact that he'd never seen a female before, and you're like, that makes sense, I guess, because they only make male clones, and everyone else is like a Kaminoan. So, like, I don't know. I love it.
It's really interesting the way that he was describing her. He's like, I've never really been this close to female, aside from, you know, the Kaminoans, like you said. And then, if I remember correctly, I read somewhere, I don't know if it was this book, but I read somewhere that some of the trainers are females, female Mandalorians, but I don't think they'd actually be like, here's male, female trainer. They'd be like, here's trainer, and that's it.
Yeah. And he would never have really dealt with the female ones if he was assigned to to Cal's group. Like, he would have just stuck to that group.
And the fact that he was like, I don't know if she's pretty or not, but this is just so fascinating to see, like, the way he described her freckles, because he didn't know what the word was. And he was describing her hair. I was like, this is so interesting. Like, it's really fascinating to see it from his point of view. Like, oh, this is what civvies look like, and oh, this is what, you know, other people look like. You know, I wonder how we look to them and all that. I'm like, this is just so fun to read.
Yeah, it's such a unique perspective. I just love being in his mind and seeing these things through his eyes. And then I guess even Atane's first impression of a clone, not knowing that they even existed, and now all of a sudden being thrust into this leadership role when she didn't even have faith in herself. Like, oh, just that whole storyline is incredible, and also so relatable, because a lot of times we'll read or we'll watch, and these Jedis are always so confident and capable, and you know, they'll always try to give them one foible, like, oh, well, this one's reckless, or this one's got an attitude, or whatever, but they're always pretty good at what they do. And then we meet one who's like, you're reading it going, that would probably actually be me. Like, I would go through the training and just barely pass and be good at like some things, but not a superstar, like not this like crazy superhero space police kind of Jedi that we're used to seeing, these like galactic heroes. Like, there's got to be some in there that are just kind of normal and not the best. And like, here's one now all of a sudden on her own, no master left, and now she's leading soldiers that she didn't even know existed. And you know, how many times have you been thrust into that kind of situation where you have no idea what you're doing, and then they're just like, okay, well, you're in charge now, or you're having a rough day, and then all of a sudden you get a responsibility that you just don't feel like you can take on, and you force yourself to muscle through it because somebody's relying on you. Like, I relate to that so hard, and so I'm like rooting for her, and I'm just like, you can do it. I don't know, love these characters.
Oh yeah, I am loving this book, and I can't wait to read the others. It's really good. It's really good.
There, I was gonna try not to ramble this episode, and I have already failed, so
I mean, we only have 2 questions left, so it's, you know, it's good to talk about other stuff, because I mean, I wasn't going to ask about any of this, so you know, it's nice that we get to express it.
A little fun tangents.
Yeah. Ronald, do you want to add anything to that, or should we jump into the next one?
I guess what you guys on the theme of realistic is more of I don't want to relive my days with these characters, because it's like, well, I came to read this book to escape kind of thing. And if I look at it that way, then I'm going to hate the book, right? So I try to look for things that made me kind of more, because you're right, like the things with the cake, the leadership roles, the Jedi try to figure some, I'm like, what's going to give me the thing that makes me escape? And what made me escape was the Jedi Attain really being the person who like Jedis who can actually be who can wield the force to wield the force to nature, right? To to grow plants and stuff like that. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, when I read that, I was like, oh, please, more of that. I want to learn more of that, and it made me very interested in the Jedi portion, because last week I was more into the clones really, and then this week I said, the moment I first read that, I think that was a chapter 6, and I said, oh, like let's go with that theme.
It's a
And
different
I
kind of
like the
Jedi.
things
Yeah.
with the farmers, but yeah, too realistic for me to. I'm like, come on, we have these problems in the world, like already. It's a little too real for me. Let's keep going. But uh, I'm liking the story with the clones so far. Let's keep those guys going. And Darman, he has come around for me. I did say last week Niner, but Darman has come around for me in these last few chapters. So if there's a question about him, I won't say it now. But yeah.
You do. No,
Oh,
and fair enough that I'm
mhm.
that way with books and movies too, which is why it's surprising that the realism is refreshing to me in this. Most of the time I'm like, if it could happen in the real world, I don't want to read it. I don't want to watch a movie about it. That's boring to me. I like the escapism. I like the larger than life and the ridiculousness of, blockbuster popcorn movies and or books, like over the top, just out of control ridiculousness, like X-Wing series. And the contrast is so hilarious. Like when it introduced Dr. Uthan in this, and it was like, she wasn't really all that good looking. She was just kind of an average lady. And I'm like, Michael Stackpole never would have written out of introducing a female character. It would have been like, she was just curvy and gorgeous with this crazy hair. And I'm like, you could tell it is a whole different kind of world right now.
You can tell when a man writes a woman versus when a woman writes her. Like, don't get me wrong, I love you, Michael Stackpole. You gave me Wedge Antilles, this awesome series. But I really have to give props to Karen, because like she describes everyone, but she's not like over sexualizing anyone. She's not like, look at this super hot person. She's like, here's just this person. Here's a couple things about them that's gonna help distinguish them later. And that's like it. And I was like, this is what I want. Man, Star Wars needs more of this.
Well, maybe. It's like Ronald says, like this is a break from the high fantasy sci-fi or the kind of thing like in X-Wing where everybody's ridiculously good looking and really talented and the dialogue is very unrealistic. And
the difference would be like from what I was saying, the difference was just like in the way that they're describing their looks. Because like in all the other books, they never really describe the guys. They're always just like, look at this busty female, and it's like, oh my god, why? Like,
I guess it doesn't describe their build always, but it always describes the hair color and the eye color. And
yeah, but then like they focus so much on like the women's bodies and they like barely touch the men, and I'm just like, you don't need to focus so much on her body. You don't need to do too much crazy stuff. And that's why I really like the way that Karen describes everyone. Like she gives you the features that you need, and she's not like focusing on certain body parts or anything, unless it's like, Etain was talking about like the muscles and how he was going to stand out because of it. Not she was checking him out, but she was like, oh my god, he's going to stand out because no one else has this. So like it was practical, and I really, really appreciate that about her writing. It's such a beautiful brush of fresh air, and I just really wish that more books would be like that when describing the characters, because I'm just so sick of, and here was this big busty lady, and then here's this guy with blue eyes, and I'm just like,
I guess I could see. I mean, yeah, and the bodies are a little more realistic in this one. You've got Etain, who's so skinny she seems malnourished, and then like an kind of average lady doctor, and then what else is like an old lady. So as far as the women goes, and then it gets very descriptive when it's talking about Darman's physique, and I'm like, okay, that's a little reversal for us here. That's fine. Like I have no problem with everybody being ridiculously good looking. Like that is a genre. I watch Avengers movies because I like to look at the men. Like, don't get me wrong. But every once in a while, something that's a little bit more realistic, where everybody's kind of average or not a specimen, is different. Only because I think I am usually so immersed in the unrealistic worlds. So I could see Ronald's point, and that this is like, oh no, these are like real normal people doing real normal army stuff. Like I could just watch a documentary for this kind of thing. Like it hasn't been super Star Warsy. Lightsabers have been almost like a real weapon or a tool in this, and not as mystic. And I think I like it, but if this was all there was, I would be like, can we get one that's like over the top, crazy, like superhero-y kind of thing, more like the X-Wing series. And it's nice that we've got that choice in Star Wars, that people approach it differently. They tell the stories differently. I like this version of a war story. I think that's what it is. If she was writing during, a different setting like the High Republic or something, where it does need to be more about the Force and the Jedi and mysticism and magic, if you will, I don't know that it would be the right style. But if you're talking about Clone Wars and Commandos and stuff, like this is perfect to me. This is what I wanted the movie Rogue One to be. I wanted it to be like very gritty war in the trenches, doing tactical stuff and Band of Brothers kind of deal. So I don't know, like there's a place for all these different styles, I think. That's the beauty of Star Wars.
Definitely agree, but I will still always be pissed about the way that they describe men versus women. So that's like, Karen, you earned so many brownie points in my book. Thank you for just treating us like normal people. Bless you.
Everybody likes normal people.
I mean, yeah, if everyone wants to be hot, I have no problem with it, but just describe the men and the women equally. That's all I ask. That's all I ask. If she's busty, talk about that man's nice beefcake butt, something. Let's make it equal. I
could get down with that.
That'd be good. That'd be nice. Anyway, ready for your next one?
Yeah, sure. So
this one, not really a question. I found this fascinating and interesting, and I was like, oh, that's kind of curious. And so I just really want your guys' thoughts. Etain, when she was feeling Darman's Force signature, she kept feeling a child, and sometimes it would revert to like that of an older person, but it would kind of teeter back and forth between like child. So I just found that interesting. What do you guys think about that?
That's the unique thing about Etain, I think, that she is not your typical Jedi that we're used to seeing that has this wide array of abilities. Her specialty is like empathetic kind of Force abilities. She can sense people, she can read people, and that's how she connects to the Force, not in a martial sort of fighting method that a lot of the Jedi we're used to seeing do. Hers is more about connecting with people. And so she reads them that way, and it becomes a very interesting feature later on, in that she's one of the few who can tell the clones apart and remembers who all of them are. And this first impression, and she's able to pick up on his youthfulness, like, and she keeps thinking that there's a child, and that when he kind of like reassesses his point of view in the situation, that essence about him changes. He goes through a mental maturation that she picks up on through the Force. It's fascinating. Like it's different. It's new. I don't know that we've ever seen anybody look at the world, any Jedi look at the world through the Force this way. And it's also a fun reminder that these are 10-year-olds. We've been in their heads long enough to hear about their training and all this hard, crazy psychological stuff that they've been through. And then all of a sudden we get this reminder from somebody on the outside, like, this is only somebody who's been alive for 10 years and they've crammed all this stuff in 10 years. And now they're out here doing this, and they haven't lived, and they're just jumping into these deadly circumstances with blind trust in these people that they've been trained to obey, that have way more life experience, but not in all the same departments that these guys do. So, but yeah, so the reading of him as a child is really endearing and interesting, and it tells us a lot more about Etain than it does about Darman, I think.
Mhm.
Oh man, I'm really liking these two as a journey to together by put by Ginart or Giart.
Jinart.
Gen art.
So Ginart, yeah, being put together by that person. I was just like, where's this gonna go? At first, when she first meets him, it's more of like he's trying to give her the lowdown. You're my commander. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to do, kind of thing. And this is still a Padawan who's still, well, for one, didn't even know that there was a Grand Army of the Republic, and then two, didn't know that the Jedi's were the generals or the, the leadership roles to these to this military. So I think the more he says, "You're my commander," um, I didn't look at it that she thought that he was childish or kind of felt that I found it more that she had to find her way to become more of being the type of role that the Jedi's that we already know, because
Mhm.
all the Jedi's in Geonosis, they had the High Council already. Hey, this is what's gonna happen. Each master is gonna control one big army. Whatever battalion you have, this is who you're gonna adjust to. And this is like you guys said, going back to the realistic mode of you trying to step into a role where you have not, you know, never trained for it,
You
never
lied on your
you
resume.
right,
Mhm.
your what's it called? Your master didn't even prepare you for something like this. If this were to ever come, or what would your master have done? And she can't go back to her master, or I mean, because it's not like Foulier is going to come back as a Force Ghost and be like, if you train them, they will be what they are supposed to be. Um, and so I like how she stepped back and it's just like, no, 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 we're gonna get this through together. It's kind of like I'm on my first mission, you're on your first mission, kind of thing. Let's get there back together and let's get our missions together, and hopefully they'll coincide and it'll all work out for everybody, right? But I don't know if I was trying to think of like why she kept asking like how old are you, and then every time like he gave her an answer like, oh, I'm 10 years old, it's like, why were you surprised? The way I read it, it was like, why are you surprised every time he says 10, right? Because
Mhm.
he looks big. And uh I mean, you're judging a person by, or a clone by their looks rather than what they know what to do, kind of thing. So
Mhm.
but I like how she stepped back. It was like, yo, you're the one who knows military. Let's go with you. And that's probably the smart thing to do. And if that's in the Jedi training, then great. But I'll just go back to it. I wish that we saw more of how this Jedi can actually use crops to actually grow with the Force. So I want to see more of that.
That's the punishment. Like, if you can't cut it as a Jedi Knight, you get sent to the Agricor because anybody can use the Force on
Sign
plants.
me up as a
Well, that's
botanist.
no
I'll be
punishment. That's like, hey, you
part of
have
it.
these abilities. They
I
don't work
actually
somewhere
like
else,
it.
but they work here. So it's
Yeah.
not punishment, but it's like, hey, here's another chance.
Yeah, here's something you can handle.
Yeah, man, and like you said, like we known a lot of what Jedi's are and stuff like that. And this is the first time I'm learning, like, oh, they can actually do that. Okay, that's a cool force power to me. Like, I want to grow food. Let's start growing food.
Interesting. On the topic of the dynamic of this partnership, I think it's so interesting that both of them are suddenly out of their league with each other. Like, that they both have to step up in ways they didn't anticipate, and just the subtle representation of that when they go undercover and Darman doesn't have his armor and she has to take out her braid, and so they're both in this uncomfortable position of like not
They're vulnerable.
being, yeah, this vulnerable position, and having to say, well, I need to get out of my comfort zone and and step up. I need to learn things that I thought somebody else would handle. And I don't know, I love it. It's an interesting dynamic.
I just like how she points out when she can sense like the child, and then other times she's like, oh, it's more mature. I just find that really fascinating because she mentioned like, oh, curiosity or anxiety like a child, and then the next second he'll be more, I don't want to say like grown up or mature, but more with it.
Mm-hmm.
In a way that a child would not be. So I find that really interesting. And I know that in like some of the Clone Wars books, like they will talk about the age, but they'll kind of like joke about it. Like in the Clone Wars novelization, Ahsoka's like, I'm 14, I'm an adult. And then Rex is like, oh, I'm 10, but I'm tall for my height. So like they'll make jokes about it, but this was just more like, oh my God, they're actually this young, Like biologically, they're this young. Mentally, they're not. But biologically, they're babies. They're wee little babies. And so I like how it's not really seen as a joke. It's more like, oh snap, like these kids are being thrown out into war, into all this. Like you guys said, everything was crammed into their heads for such a short amount of time. And I like how it, Darman's just kind of like, whatever, I'm 10. But then Etain is like, oh my God, this child, like not like to berate him or like condescend him, but just like more concern. And I was like, this is really fascinating because you don't always see that when it comes to the clones. You don't always see how people are like, oh, Criff, you're actually this young. You've been put through all this intense training and whatnot for so few years. And that's why I forgot what chapter it was, but Kai Adimundi was like,
oh, that quote, I love that quote.
And where he said something along the lines of like, I weep for these clones who die in battle more than a regular soldier because they didn't get a chance to live life. And I'm just like, oh,
so true, right?
A lot. So I really like the perspective it gives on that.
Yeah, just to go back on these two really quickly, like I look at it more of they're the outliers in the class, and like one person, like let's just say Etain didn't have a partner, and then they're like, oh, Darman, since you don't have a partner too, you have to go partner up with Etain, kind of thing. And then you don't know if the person's smart or if the person, like, what their value to the project would be, kind of thing. So I think it's more of like that with these two, which is really cool because I think they're the perfect pair to match up to, and then they're probably going to get an A+ in class. So
who knew? I think it's interesting that it shows Etain's quality in that she kind of was like going out there going, maybe I should just go back, and I don't know, until she felt the presence of a child, and that suddenly gave her something outside of herself to focus on, almost like a mission, like, oh my gosh, there's a child in the woods, like I need to figure out, I need to get to the bottom of this. And then she sees what she thinks is a Mandalorian, and it's like, I got to protect this child. And suddenly she becomes more aggressive than she ever was when she was just trying to protect herself. And then when she finds out that he is the child, she's suddenly like way more willing to go along with it. I mean, she gets told off by Jannart and even Darman to an extent, like, oh, I thought you would be something different. And I think she's inside still views him like a child, even though she can sense that he is changing for her sake. And that triggers a protective instinct in her that she never had when she was on her own, when she was hiding, and when she thought her master was dead and she was here all alone on this planet, and oh, I might as well give up, I'm not that good. But now that she's got somebody to protect and that she views as a 10-year-old, it's like, oh no, I'm a Jedi, like I need to protect innocent people, I need to protect children, like it doesn't matter what it costs me. Like then she's whipping out her lightsaber all the time now. And it's it's just like, that's the difference. Like that's what makes her a Jedi, is this sense of like caring more about other people than herself. She doesn't hold herself in high regard, but she'll rush into these dangerous situations that she knows she's unqualified for because this child needs her help. And even though she's starting to view him a little differently, I think deep down she still wants to just protect him because he was just this lost child in the woods that she first sensed. And I think it's going to take her a minute to kind of shift that perspective. I don't know, my thoughts.
That's interesting to hear. And I didn't really think about that, about how she's like, oh, I need to be protective of this kid even after their encounter. I didn't really think about that. So that's interesting to consider about how she's going to behave in the future. And part of me hopes that, it's important to acknowledge, like, yes, these are 10-year-olds. They are super capable. They're 10-year-olds, but I am just a little bit worried that she might only see him as this 10-year-old and like forget his capabilities and be like, I need to protect, this kid. And so I'm a little bit worried about that. I'm so excited to see where this goes, but I think that's a new fear I have.
I like that they relate on that, though, that neither of them had a normal upbringing with a real family, and that they've spent all their life training to be more special than the average human. And
that's
that they have that in common.
Yeah.
Like that they're both supposed to be kind of elite from the average citizen. And yet here they are on their first real solo mission. Like, I don't know, I like it.
The right term to there would be keepers of the peace, soldiers, but not keepers of the peace and not soldiers.
Yeah.
Two different. Keepers of the peace for the Jedi, soldiers for the clones.
Yeah, but it's getting all muddied now. There's a war on, man.
Well, let's bring on some battle droids.
Here they come.
Ready for the last question?
Sure.
So we're getting a decent mixture. We've kind of talked about this in this episode already, but we've been getting a decent mixture of action, planning, and just regular interaction. We're halfway through. How are you liking this book?
Do you even need to ask? I do think, and I think Ronald will agree, it's been slow. I like it because it's really giving me some satisfying, juicy character development and a lot of interesting interactions and perspectives that I appreciate that you don't always get. You're learning a lot about them and their tactics and their history, and it's taking a while and is slowly introducing you to all these concepts. But now, we've got the plans, we've got the RV points, and we've got the weapons. So I think we're at the halfway point, and the rest is going to be action. And we're going to see these guys now under pressure, under fire, in stressful situations, having to do what they are bred to do. Like, we're going to actually get to see them at the height of their peak performance, and then throw Etain in there, who this is not her specialty, fighting, war, killing, not her thing. Like, she's a people person. Her master was like let's keep the peace and see if we can get everyone to get along and understand each other kind of person. She was never forced into battle like this. And so she's kind of the audience POV character. Like, you've got these specialists that were trained all their lives to do just this. They're going to go in there, they're going to rock, hopefully. Like, I can't wait to see them in high action doing what they're specialized to do. Republic commandos, 4 people on a mission that should take an army. Let's go. I think it goes down from here. All the pieces are in place for this game, and everybody knows as much information as they need to know. Some people know the wrong information. Like, it's fascinating. I love Jannart. I love these Gerlinin characters. Crazy. These shapeshifters are just what an interesting thing to introduce, like, and how you can use them. And I don't know, I think they're an interesting little thing at play here. So what's going to happen there? But yeah, I think it's going to be a lot more action packed, a lot more things going on, and a lot less talking and slowly crawling along the ground for days on end. So should pick up from here. Got
I
battle
mean, I
droids now.
can't really say I don't like the book or like the book until I probably get to towards the end more. But I'm not gonna say that I don't like it because that's not true. Which is, I do agree that it is slow, and with it being slow, I'm more, I've gotten used to where the books we were reading are very, um, they're very guns blazing kind of thing, and it's like at the moment I already can kind of pick up. But there's been books like this where I didn't pick up until like halfway towards the book or towards almost the end of the book, right? But I don't think this is going to be one of those cases.
Yeah.
But it is one of the cases where I feel like this one is the slowest so far for me. And then therefore, you won't get my interest until like something major happens where you give me the oh crap moment where I'm gonna say, oh, I like it because of that. There, and that's why I don't think the game really, um what you call it, the game that's kind of like what supposedly this book is. When I had it in PC, it was not a game that really went far with me. Like I played it and then I forgot I had it, and then now I'm about to get it again. And so I think I'm looking more of this is let's give Republic Commando another chance, right? Because I am seeing a little bit of it in some of the games I'm playing, but like Battlefront 2, but it's I got to give it another chance to tell my 14 to 21-year-old self me to say, hey, no, this is what they really were. This is what they were about, not what you're going to know what the new things I watch, opposed to like see what it was when it came out that way, right? And I like that about that. So I like, I'm not slow to judge, but yeah, it's a little bit more different than what I'm really used to. So I'm like,
It is different.
I will
Yeah.
keep my like all the stuff like how you guys really into the characters. Like before I give any character a chance in this one, because like I said, like I'm not gonna take away what I said last week. This is really how you write Jedi, how you write Mandalorians, and how you write clones. But it's like you got to show me like there's so much introduction and there's so much characters, and I'm like bouncing back and forth to like, who is that again? Oh yeah, that's that person. But now as they come together, like hopefully in the next final chapters of this book, like hopefully I want to say like, man, clones, turn it up for me.
Come
And
on.
then like let me know what Republic Commando was all about, like, right? Because they seem very interesting, but we haven't got there yet. I don't think we have got there yet. Like we're
They've
just,
got a lot of explosive ordnance now, so you can look forward to things blowing
but
up
it's
a
not
lot
even
more.
that. It's like I'm really like with Darman. I'm really like take this leadership role. I age doesn't matter because you're accelerated, meaning you're a super soldier at this point. Like do what you're meant to be done, and like get the job done. That's what we do, right? I will mourn if one of these guys do die. Like I'm not as close as you guys. Like, but if like you
That
take
would
out
be
one of
hard to
these,
do.
it's like taking out one of the Ninja Turtles to me. So it's like, and then I don't want to even get to Hoken and his goons because they remind me of the villains, and never mind. So we
Ninja
won't even
Turtles?
go there. Yes, we won't even go there.
Is he like
I
Shredder
don't like going. Yeah, so
and the
he's like
Foot
Shredder,
Gang?
Bebop, and Rocksteady. So I'm like,
Yes!
these two guys. So, and
Oh
that's
my
when you had
gosh.
said it earlier. I was just like, that was going through my mind as you were saying it. I was like, yep, Bebop and Rocksteady. Like, yeah, the goons. But man, I am excited to. I think it's because they're not together. they're separated in the fact that the mission's all over the place, and you only have Jinart trying to be the third party and tell the other group like, hey, this is what the other two are doing. Let me translate what you guys are doing, and like let's try to meet in the middle kind of thing. Like I think it's once they all get together, like we've seen lastly in the last book we just read, Wedge's Gamble. Once they get together, that's when it's all gonna turn loose. So
It's crazy.
I'm ready for guns blazing then.
Fair enough.
As you guys know, I am loving this book. I am all for it. And I do like that it starts out kind of slow because, yeah, they may have been trained for their entire lives, but they're brand new to war to the point where Niner is like, oh God, if we make it back, like we're going to have to make amendments to the training because they didn't even prepare us for stuff like this. So, like, I like that it's slow because it shows like they're all new to this and they're trying to figure out how to go about it. And we're slowly starting to see it come together. So I feel like the future books are going to be more action packed because they're going to be more sure of themselves, are going to have more experience to go off of.
She's doing a lot of world building.
And I really appreciate that. Yeah. And, it is kind of slow, but I think if she wasn't going slow, we would be so lost and confused, or it would just feel like the other Star Wars books where it's like, look at these already super capable people despite having never been exposed to like half of this before in their lives. So I really do like that it is going slow.
Yeah, I don't think I would care half as much about them if they were just constantly thrown into action scene after action scene.
Yeah.
I would still appreciate them and be rooting for them, but I don't know that it would tug on my heartstrings quite as much. Like a lot of other books we read, I'm just like, oh, I love this person, like they're so cool, but like you don't really get into their mind and their thoughts quite as much, or I don't know, you don't see their humanity quite as much, and it's not essential to a book, but it is nice to read one now and then that takes the time to do that. But yeah, I see Ronald's point. And I see yours.
Let me just make clear, it's slow to my standards. Like really, it's somebody who doesn't quite grasp reading at a super fast paced level. Like the way I look at things, I don't look at things about world building and character development. Really, I'm only looking, give me the story. Like this is a story.
What, like I know the Star Wars world. Let's go.
I mean, and that's why, I was like, oh, early in this, or halfway towards this book is what you're giving us what hard contact means, situations when soldiers actually engage each other. That's exactly what relates to me, is the things like that. So I'm like, okay, well, that's what hard contact means in my mind.
Your terms.
Aggressive negotiations, but like with a lightsaber. But no, I mean, it's slow in my standards. If you were to think about it, it's not that.
No, and your standards are.
It's not
what
that
we've read
like.
So far.
I don't think the author purposely wrote it slow. It's slow to my standards, to my where my reading capability is that way. So it's just the way I process things. I'm more selective of the things I process, and what I think of is probably something what other people don't think of, and so when I'm hearing your guys's your answers and to what world building, and I'm reading through that and I'm like, oh cool, like it's because I've related that to other books, like when Megan talks about smells, like the cake, I could really taste the cake in this, but then it's not my forte to be like, okay, let's all have our cake and then we're all gonna have a happy story now. No, it's to me that was just like, okay, I get it, but like special forces, guys, like guns blazing.
And I wonder
stuff,
if it has to do with the fact that you guys have seen the show or played the game and that kind of thing, whereas when this came out, it was introducing us to something nobody understood yet. We did not know where anything about clones. Did they think independently? How did were Jedi always trained to take command of other beings and forces of peacekeeping on planets or whatever? Like we didn't really know what this dynamic was. We didn't know we didn't know the inside of a clone's head. Like, how did they view each other? How did they view the rest of the galaxy? Were they just kind of programmed like a droid, or were they more human? Like, so this slow build was fascinating. We didn't know anything about them or how the Clone Wars began. We saw kind of something happen at the end of the movie, and then by the beginning of the next movie, boom, we were into it. We didn't have the Clone Wars TV show yet. And then I think the video game's probably just like a shooting game. I don't know if there's much story to it. So it required this amount of world building and getting into their heads and talking about their training and how they relate to each other and how they view this galaxy that they've learned about but never actually lived in. And it was fascinating, and it was essential to understand that in order to care about these characters. Whereas you read it now and you've spent the last 15 years knowing what clones are and how they relate to people and each other, and so you're like, yeah, I know, get on with it. But at the time, it was new territory. Nobody knew what to expect, and so her going into it was building this brand new world, was with a new type of character, almost a new species. They're human, but they're not the type of human we're used to. They're not the type of aliens we're used to. They're clones. Like, what is that? What is that like? How do they operate? So it was still interesting and fresh and new, even at the slow pace, because everything you were reading was something you've never heard of before. So it still kind of kept your interest. And I think reading it now, you don't get that experience.
Like you said, it's saying about, but because like when they ambushed the droid battalion, right? And then they left signs, which the villain took it as, oh, are they making a statement? But really it was like, let's leave this stuff so Darman will see it and he'll know we're still good and alive, right? And so when I look at things like that, I'm like, oh, okay, cool, related to the show. A lot of the things this author probably like is changing for me the way I think of the clones are. One, remember the one part where Niner had to change, like, he's like, oh, we need to change the setting because this jungle setting doesn't work for this type of planet. Let's get a different setting into that. And then another thing is like them being homesick, and it's like every time they think of Camino, it's like something like, and
like,
this is where I guess I can relate to these clones. Is I get homesick really easy. So it's like when you take me out of where I live, it's like, man, I want to go home right away. And then I feel like them. So whenever they talk about Camino, I'm just probably like, oh, they're just like me in a way, but I'm not a clone. Hopefully that picks up on the
this
mic.
Is early in the, like, this is the galaxy's just starting to learn that there's even a war on at all. Some of these characters didn't even know. And so you get into the next couple books and it's like, it's full on mid Clone Wars battles on hundreds of planets. Like, it's gung-ho, let's go. So this is kind of the early stages. Planets are just starting to ease into the conflict. So it is definitely the setup book, and the rest of them, it's like, oh yeah, we're in the middle of a war, let's go. Gung-ho, clones and Jedi and droids, it's crazy. So
Roger.
Yeah, that was it, huh? That was your last question. Any other thoughts, Jasmine? Who do you love?
I want to marry Niner and I want to adopt Darman.
He is.
And I don't get me wrong, I love Fi and a teen, but I feel like they'd be more like the brothers and Darman would be my son.
They're like slowly developing, not quite as fast as the others, but yeah.
There was one part I freaking died when he said, "It's a teen's face." Fi said, "Don't stand there being so ugly, man. You're scaring him." And I was like, God, I love how they got so comfortable with each other that they're already
so much
that they're already being stupid like that. And I was like, oh, I want to be Fi's
what are
best
you
friend.
Collecting disgusting features like when he gets the bruise. Poor a teen. Oh, I like that he's finally like warming up to them though. Getting his legs under him. It's good stuff. Anyway, love this team. So what are our chapters for next week?
Chapters for next week are 11 through 15.
11 through 15. Man, we are going to blast through this in, I think, 4 sections.
Mhm.
So small. I want more. But yeah, so hopefully things get a little crazier and more action packed, and the gang all gets together and we get to see them operate as a unit, and Ronald can get on board the hype train because it is leaving the station choo choo. 6 through, no, wait, not 6, 11 through 15. 11 through 15 for next week. If you're not getting enough battles out of the book, you can always hop over to our Twitch, where we're playing a lot of Battlefront 2. And by we, I mean Sexy Leader down there. He's taking us all across the galaxy, fighting in space and on ground. It's amazing. Otherwise, yeah, catch us on all the social medias. Read your chapters for next week. And that is all we've got for now. So, Sexy Wookiees, let's sign out. Sexy Wookiees. Ronald moving his mic.